2 weeks ago that we wouldn't get many people, so we're really thrilled that you've come. We're going to videotape this session so that we intentionally trying to make sure that the information that we present tonight is available for everybody. We took on some feedback last year when we had this evening and the time didn't suit some parents, so we wanted to try to accommodate everybody. So this is the first information night for 2018 that we will film. And then we're going to put up a link for parents to be able to access that information if you can't make one of these evenings. So it's a trial tonight, and all the teachers are all ready and ready to be on camera, and then that link will go up as soon as we possibly can and make that available to you. So if anyone you know has missed out, please pass that on. So tonight we're really talking about that partnership in the space of reading. The partnership between home and school, the importance can't be overstated. Everything we do at school is magnified and strengthened if we've got a good partnership with you and we can communicate what we're doing and you can back that up. So tonight we've got all the teachers from our kindy team and our year 1 and our year 2s. And in the past we've only just had our year 1 teachers talk about that beginning reading strategy for that first year of primary school and ways that you can support your child at home. Tonight we're going to cover all those strategies with you with our kinder team and talk about that beginning reading, but then our year 1s and our year 2s are going to build on that, and they're going to present some information about some reading strategies, how to find meaning within what's being read, whether it's literal meaning or inferred meaning, and present a number of ways that you can question and stretch your children. So we want to leave 15 minutes at the end for questions, so we're aiming to rock and roll until 6:45 and then open it up to you for discussion or anything that we haven't covered or if we haven't been clear. So I'm going to hand over. Oh, one more, sorry. Oh, our working with vulnerable people. Our reading in the morning has already started and we thank you. The buzz in the junior school is beautiful and walking down through there and seeing you in the mornings when you can make it is fantastic. We ask you to come and read with your own child, but there are some children who the parents are working, it's difficult, and we totally understand. If you have your working with vulnerable people registration, it allows us then to maybe match you up with someone who doesn't have anyone. We try to get as many bodies in there as possible, and all the teachers that are not teaching a class at that point are in there, but of course we can always use more. So if you've got your working with vulnerable people card and you're prepared to read with other children, we would love that resource. And we'll ask you to sign in that time so that we've got a record of who's in the school and who isn't, just in case we have a lockdown or anything else, we can track who's there and who's available to read with those children that possibly don't have someone that can come in at that time. So please think about that. It's a really easy registration. You can do that at the shop front.
It's free.
And it is free for volunteers. So we'd encourage you to do that. It also allows us then, if we know that and we've got that register, if we're needing extra hands on deck with any other school events, if we're going off site on excursions, we know that that person's got their working with vulnerable people and we can ask you to come along and be an extra pair of hands. So it's a great asset for us. Okay. And I'll hand over to the kindy team.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to talk to all of you about a little bit of morning reading structure, which I know 1s and 2s obviously already know because you've done it in kindy, but there are some new parents to kindy this year. So we do it from 9 a.m. to about 9:10 or 9:15, and that's Monday to Thursday. We don't do it on Fridays because most of the time we have assembly that day and it's easier to stick to a routine like that. So they swap books and take them home, so each class is a little bit different on when they want to swap their books, whether it's the morning or the week before, but they take one book home every day and then take all of them home over a weekend to read again. So the idea is that they read one book each morning and then take that same book home at night time to then practice reading again and show how good they've gotten over the day. And as Lisa said, like, it's really good if you can read with your child first, and if you have the time, listen to another child read, or even then encourage your child to read to the person next to them as another way for them to just get that extra practice in. One of the most important parts is that it's not a time to be chatting, like to other parents or to the teacher as well. So we try to read with as many kids as we can during that time, or doing other little bits and pieces of like letter work, especially in the kindy grades. So it's for reading, not for socialising. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit more about what you can do to help your child be a confident reader. So the idea of home readers is that they're easy, familiar texts and they build confidence. So your child might tell you that it's easy and that it's not a challenge for them, but that is the idea, so that they build that confidence and they believe that they can read. And you'll see the smiles on their faces when they think they can do it, and that's a really nice thing to see. So that's what morning reading and the home readers are for. And then read more challenging text. They will read more challenging texts with the support of an adult, either at school during guided reading or at home with another adult. And the home readers, because they are easy and to build that confidence, they can get a little bit repetitive, especially for a parent. So it's also a good idea, do that reading, get them to read it to you, and then follow that up with a book that they really enjoy reading, so that they still get exposure to enjoying reading and loving it. And so for that, we really encourage you to read a wide range of quality text. I thought I'd just show you a few of my favourite ones that I know the kids love. So I'm sure you've probably seen before the Elephant and Piggy books. So it's all about the characters being a bit silly, but the text in is actually quite simple, that you can either help your child to read or eventually they can start to read themselves as well. And there's a series of those, so the children really love to have a go at them. Or books like this one from Mem Fox. This has two really great things about it. It has repetition and rhyme. So not only on each page is the text repeated, so I can give you one example. So on every page it says, "You, ladybird, where are you?" And that's the text that's repeated. And then it says, "There you are," and they get to search and build those picture looking skills. And then on the next page it finishes with rhyming words, so "afloat in the bath with duck and giraffe." So that's the other part, repeating, but then also rhyming, because then they can start to predict, and it just makes it a bit more enjoyable for them when they feel that they can do that. Or alternatively, if you're having a bit of trouble getting them engaged in reading, read any kind of book that comes from a TV show that they love. So I know whenever we read a Charlie and Lola one, they love to tell me that they know that and that they've read it or they've seen it on TV. So it's just a little extra way. Or read a book that is purely just, they think it's funny and the characters are funny. So I've read The Day the Crowns Quit so many times, and I still have my students asking me most days if I can read it again. So that's the different range of text that you could do. And then also on that, it's really important to bring a library bag to school, so that they can come and pick a book that they want to read just because they like the look of it or they like the story. So Kindy does library on Tuesday, and they do need a library book to be able to borrow. Is that the same for ones and twos? Yeah. Yeah, so they need their library bag. And year ones are on Wednesday and year 2 is on Thursday. This part is for the kinder parents. I just forgot to mention this before. If you haven't had a child go through kinder here before, they have their reader bags that came in their book boxes. And so each day this will come home with one of their books in it. And then they also have their little yellow My Home Reading Diary, where you go through and they draw a smiley face to say whether they liked reading the book, whether they didn't. You can write a comment, you don't have to, but the part that they love the best is that there's reward stickers. So when they read 25 nights, 50 nights, 75 nights, there's little reward pages that they can do. And that's something they might like to really show to their teacher and get a little bit of success out of it. The last thing I want to say, and this is the one that I think is the most important, and as I said, the readers can get a little bit boring for the parents, that it's really, really important to have a positive and enthusiastic attitude, because if you don't seem like you like it or you're enjoying it, then the kids aren't going to want to do it either. So even if it's a little bit hard, try to always keep up that positive attitude and reminding your kids to keep going and encouraging them. Thanks.
I'm just going to show you now, this is our reading assessment. So the children will go through different staged books. In kindergarten and in the younger grades, they're coloured based on the level that they are. Often children will be able to read the words in the book, but not the comprehension. So our reading assessment is really based on making sure children not only know the words in the book, but can also comprehend the meaning behind it. So the first child reads the book. So how we run it is the child reads it to themselves. I tell them they can read it once, twice, 3 times until they've got a really good understanding of it. And then we ask them to give a retell when we are asking for a retell, we're really looking more than just a summary. We don't want to hear the book was about this. We want to hear the beginning, the middle, the end. We want to hear details. We want to hear text-specific vocabulary. So we want to hear them using words that they've read in the book. Like, for example, I'm thinking of older examples such as habitat or things like that, if that's been in the story. And they are interpreting the picture information. A lot of information does come through the illustrations of the book as well, especially with feelings of characters and things like that. And yeah, next page. So after we've sat there and we've done a retell with them, and all students do this about once a term, I'd say, on average, depending on, some children will do it more regularly, and the EL team will take over a lot of this for students who have a second language. So we get the children to read through the story with us after the retell, and we tick, 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 tick the words that they're getting. We talk about how they're making their errors in these columns here, and we work out how many words in a percentage they've got correct in the text. And then, this is the most important part, they don't have to get every single word correct to pass to the next level. However, they do need to get every comprehension correct here in the comprehension questions at the back. And this is the part that often you'll be frustrated, I know, as a parent, your child isn't moving forward. They seem to be able to get all the words in the book of all the readers, but if you feel like your child is stuck on a level of reading, this is the bit that they're probably missing on their test, that they're missing the inferential and difficult questions, and the older year groups are going to talk a bit more about inferential questions and sort of the hidden meaning behind the text. So accuracy, retell and comprehension, which is basically what we've discussed. There's a lot of ways that you can use different strategies when you're reading rather than simply reading with your children to really stretch that experience at home. So often children will be at the beginning years, so these are examples of books that you'll get for non-readers, our first, fresh kindies. Some kids come into kindy reading reasonably confidently and some don't. So we'll be looking for picture cues. This is the cake. We'll be looking at them, pointing to the words and then looking at the cake to understand what the word the cake is. And they're very, very, very important, especially in the earlier books. The picture cues are really, 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 really strong. This one goes through the cake being put in a bag and then being put in a box. Not very entertaining, but it is there for the phonics and it's there for that connection between words and pictures. As they get older, the pictures will become less important in the text and we'll be looking for them to pick up more of the phonics. The next strategy you can use is phonic awareness, so that's just sounding out the letters. So if we look at this one, we'd say k for cake. We've got another k later. At the pet shop, you could understand that maybe that picture doesn't say that they're at the pet shop. They could be visiting a rabbit. So that's really looking at the P at the beginning to, and the sounding of the letters out. And we will be sending home sounds, and you'll be knowing that when they hear the songs, that the t and the s sound are coming through. And then next one, you can ask them, does it make sense? And this is what we still do as adults. If you're reading and you've read something incorrectly, it just doesn't make sense. So getting children to reread a story to make sure that it is making sense to them, and then they can retell the story just like we do in our comprehension, that we are looking for a detailed retell and that they're not missing parts of the story and not just focusing on what the words say. The most important is pause, prompt and praise. So when they get a word wrong or they don't know a word, they might be looking at you to tell them the word, but you need to give them that little bit of space to try and figure it out, a little bit of an awkward silence. Then you can use a prompt. So any of these things above, you might point to the picture in the book, you might help them sound out the first letter in the book, and then when they get it right, give them praise even, and that's something that we very strongly encourage, and that's the hardest one I find to do, is to have that little awkward pause where they're really wanting you to help, but you've really got to tell them to use the strategies with your prompts there, and then make sure they know that they've done a good job. We have little strategy takeaway sheets, so they're up here, and they're just to remind you some of the things that you can use at home, and there's 2 of them for you guys to take home at the same time.
Alrighty, we're going to talk a bit more about the reading strategies. So like Jess said in kindy, they have very basic strategies. When they do move on to year 1, they may still be using some of the kindy strategies, and that is okay. They will then advance onto some of the other strategies. So where are we? Stretchy snake. So that's stretching out all the letters and sounds that they know and they can hear or see within a picture, within a word. Chunky monkey. So breaking up the words that they don't know into chunks that they already do know. There might be a little word that they know in that word. There might also be blends that they already recognise. So breaking it down into that. Try and line, like they said, praise, give them a go, give them that time, get them to just try and have a go themselves. Skippy the frog, so we do refer to them as animals, gets them engaged a little bit more. So Skippy the frog is when we're reading, if we get to a word we don't know, skip it. Read on to the end of the sentence. Sometimes the end of the sentence will give them clues to figure out, oh, I actually do know what that word means now when it's in context with the rest of the sentence. So then if they do skip it, that is okay. You just have to get the encouragement to go back and reread the sentence. That's the big one with that. Flippy the dolphin. So again, this is another higher order one. It's knowing the vowels, so the A, E, I, O and U, and knowing that long vowels, they will say their own name. So O will say O within a word, or the short ones, it might say O. So top, if they're reading top, they go, yep, T. You know, if the O, if they're saying T, O, it's not going to work. So then get them to flip the vowel and say O instead. So knowing the 2. Careful caterpillar, so just reading the whole word, being very careful when they do read. Some kids will get to reading and they will just read so fast that they miss the meaning, they miss simple words, they'll read the for or for the. So those simple little mistakes, we want them to just read really carefully and make sure they're taking in all that meaning. So when we do ask them the questions at the end of the book, they have the full understanding to answer the questions correctly. Yeah.
And all of these strategies are up in our classroom, so we refer to them. The kids are quite familiar with them as well.
Yeah, and one of the handouts over there is that.
So I guess for year 1 at home, we really do want to encourage the kids to read a variety of texts, so picture books, factual books, but also like if you're driving on the way to school, you might see a stop sign, get them to read that as well. Cooking, ingredients, recipes are great as well. Enjoy reading, that's the main one. Get them to enjoy reading. During guided reading throughout the week, we do read a few levels higher. So we're there to help them with that. Basically, when they're reading at home, we really just want them to have fun and enjoy reading and build that confidence, I think as Jess mentioned earlier. You're free to read other books from the library or books at home. That kind of brings me on to repetition. It doesn't matter if they're reading books a few times, books that they love, keep reading that because it gives them the opportunity to practice fluency and expression, which is also important. We're going to pass it on to Doogs and Dougal and John. They're going to talk about literal questioning.
Alright, so literal questioning, ultimately what you'd like eventually is that your children be asking these questions themselves. In the meantime, it's a great way for you to engage with your children in asking these questions. Now, we've got an example here that can go with a picture book, or you can be reading from a chapter book. So you can see that some of the questions you can ask, and the literal questions, they're literally right in the text. They're right there. You can see them, and you'll be asking them. It can be as simple as your child might be reading a book before dinner. Just sit down and ask a few questions there. But John's going to go through some examples.
So obviously this is going beyond just reading the words on the page, encouraging the development of that comprehension and understanding what they've read. So if you're reading this text, first page, Clinton Gregory has a secret. Actually, Clinton Gregory has at least 7 secrets just from last week. And what would question
Wow.
they ask students?
Well, who's the main character, John?
So then it's a question that they can look at the text and find the answer. Oh, I think it might be Clinton Gregory.
Well done. Crazy.
So obviously that's a simple example from a simple text, but there's some kids in year 1 who are already reading chapter books, and I've had parents saying, how can I help my child develop their reading? And asking these kind of questions, you don't have to sit there and read the book with them, but later on say, oh, who are the main characters in that book that you're reading? What did they get up to in the chapter that you read today? So it's something that you can really develop, help develop their reading at those different levels.
Yes.
Yeah? For more tough questions, we're going to hand over to you.
Okay, so by grade 2, obviously they've been reading at home for 2 years. They've still got to do it in grade 2. We've talked about accuracy and we've talked about fluency, and we're still working on those goals in grade 2. So we're wanting them to read the text without mistakes, which is the accuracy part. We want them to understand what they read, we want them to read fluently. So we want them to read the text without mistakes smoothly and with expression. But we also are focusing more on the comprehension and also the expanding of vocabulary. It's really important that you make a time during the day or at night time. I used to read with my daughter at night after she had dinner and had a bath, and it would be a really nice time for us just to sit side by side in bed or on the couch, just in a nice quiet place where the telly's not roaring or the dog's not running around, and just enjoy that time like the grade 1s and the kinder teachers have said, because it's a really precious time. Enjoy reading together. A lot of parents, I think, in grade, when the kids get to grade 2 or older, they think, oh, my child can read, and yes, they can, but they still need you there to demonstrate and model, and we'll go on to ask questions, rather than just letting them read a book that they've brought home and reading it by themselves and then zipping it up and putting it away and bringing it back to school. So your job's still really, really important in grade 2. I won't talk about the strategies because the grade 1s have done a great job with moving beyond the school. Rereading those passages for fluency, the grade 1s have also said that, so it's okay to read the same book a number of times. This is where we want to focus on, and that's the asking questions. We talked about the literal questions or the right there questions, and we're still working on those with our grade 2s, even with the better readers. But we are looking more so at the next level of reading questions, which are the inferential questions. So we've got Ellie here who's going to talk about some examples of inferential questions.
All right, so following on from the year 1s who spoke about the literal questioning, we're moving beyond to the inferring. So that's looking between the lines. So for example, if I was outside and I saw a little girl sitting down, tears on her eyes, I'm going to infer straight away that that girl's obviously upset, and I'd go and ask her if she's okay. So it's the same thing with their reading. It won't directly state it in the text, but they're using their prior understanding and their knowledge to answer those questions. And this is quite often where kids get stuck when we're reading with them. So if a parent asks me about where to next, this is the biggest one I would say. When they get to those higher levels, you will notice that they'll get up in year 2, year 3, and you might think they're not moving in their reading as much, and that is because of the comprehension. It does get trickier, and we do expect more from them. So it's more thinking about what is being said without it directly stating it, and Callum has got an example for you.
Yeah, so I'm not going to read my book like John did. It'll be entertaining. This book is about 2 boys who kick their soccer ball over the next door neighbour's fence, who's Mrs. Brown, and they are made to go and get their ball. So I might just ask an inferential question from our PM benchmark assessment and give you 2 of the answers that would be an acceptable answer from our students. So the question is, Dougal might be able to answer this one maybe. Why did Ryan and Tom walk slowly up the path to Mrs. Brown's house? Okay. Now the student has to give an answer as to why the boys are walking slowly, And two answers could be they were a bit scared of Mrs. Brown, or they didn't know what to say to Mrs. Brown. So the student has to use maybe their prior knowledge, things they already know, to answer the question that's not really written in the text by the author. So thinking about the author's purpose and all those things.
And a lot of the time
that
it's
was
their
talked about.
feelings and things like that that is giving you the clue for inferring.
And these inferential questions, as you go up those reading levels into year 1 and 2, they are, they do get a bit trickier and more complex. So that's where that questioning at home, what we've talked about, what Caroline started and Ellie talked about, is really, really important for them to be able to, really think about those questions and read between the lines. And I think we'll have another example.
I've got another
from an
example
information
here.
text. Yeah.
So this is a Brown figure. It's about a pool complex, and it just describes the types of pools that are there, what the pools are used for. And there's a couple of clues using the pictures. You can see the text is of, the pictures really aren't showing the children very many clues. They've got to really delve down into it. One of the questions is, it says here in the text, there is also an outdoor pool which is used during the summer months. And the inferential question is, which pool is closed during winter? So they've got to use their prior knowledge that if it's outside and it's winter time and it's cold, then the outdoor pool is probably going to be the one that is closed, because it's too cold to swim
Which
outside.
might be an easier for a student to think.
Yeah, so that's another example of an inferential question, using their prior knowledge, as well as what the author has, the clues that the author has given. Yeah.
So after inferential questions, there's evaluative questions, which requires the student making connections beyond the text. So we have to use our knowledge of the world to make a judgment based, or make a choice based upon what we already know. So, for example, this non-fiction text about plastic in our world, you would ask the children or the student, why did the author write this book? Or do you agree that plastic is bad in the environment?
I've got another example with the water world one. It says in the text that children under the age of 12 aren't allowed to swim in the deep pool, and the question, the applied knowledge or the evaluative question is, why would the children under 12 not be allowed to swim in the big pool? So they've got to come up with that they're not very good swimmers, they might not have supervision, they might fall in and they won't be able to get to the edge side of the pool, that sort of thing. So they've got to use their prior knowledge about small children and the depth of water, and then the safety aspects of that, I suppose. So that's where we're going in grade 2. We're sort of looking at those higher order questions. Really important to keep reading at home and just enjoy the books with your kids, because they grow up so quick, and then at some point they'll be in year 6 and they won't want to read with you. So enjoy it.
For those of you who don't know, my name's Sandy, and I work with those students who speak another language in addition to English, so often called EAL. English is an additional language or dialect, and it's nice to see so many families here tonight. My big message is that we firmly believe in promoting bilingualism. Your first language is very important, and there are a number of times when you're reading with your children at home where it's most important that you develop that first language. It becomes the foundation for all other language learning, and it's a big part of their self-concept and well-being. And so there are times where you may be doing a retelling exercise with the kids. So they've read the story either to themselves or you've read it together, and they could, in their first language, do that retelling. That's a great thing to be doing. You don't necessarily have to sit with them and read it through and know about the text. If they come to you and they're sounding like they're not making much sense and there's not much sequence or detail in there, they probably need to go away and do another read and come back again to do it a further time. I think most of these points have already been made by all the classroom teachers, but the positivity around picking a suitable time, it's not going to happen every night, but there is significant differences if you can aim for every night. And if it's not going to work, if your child's a bit fragile and overtired, there's nothing wrong with just reading and enjoying that positivity around stories. Just for the kindy parents at the moment who are probably very much focused on letter sound knowledge, sounds are what we're really focusing on. So a lot come in knowing the letter names, but we really need those sounds that are generated. 26 letters of the alphabet, 44 different sounds in English. If you have another language and there's a really distinct difference with your alphabet, kindergarten parents, it might be a good time to set that aside and focus just on the English alphabet until they gain in confidence with that. I notice across kindergarten right up to year 2, it's really important when we're looking at high frequency words and building that bank of knowledge to not only be able to work out what the word says, but to have it be really automatic. So there are some kids who can pause and decode and have a little bit of a think and get there, but we're looking for more practice to take place, so that's a really automatic skill, and then they're really quite confident with their reading and they go on to better fluency from there. Game playing is a really good thing, making it fun, so sometimes you've read your story together. You can take all of those words out of context, use them on bits of paper, you can play some quite easy little games, rolling a dice, just looking at the words and recognising them. You can't work it out just by looking at the word. You've got your book there, flick back through, work it out. Oh, I know that says that, and build it up in that way. As I said, retelling text, comprehension skills are also reinforced, so whether it be in your home language or in English, you're looking to build vocabulary and what words mean, word choices, words that go together, phrases that might be written. So we're looking at written language versus spoken language. Any type of discussion you can do around language is really great, because when they get into the higher grades, they are asked for opinions, they are asked to explain what they think. And if they haven't had experience in that previously, then it becomes a little bit harder and a bit of a sticking point. And as we've said numerous times already tonight, pointing out what strategies were effective and what worked for them. I like the way you got your mouth ready for that first sound there, and then you worked out what that word was. I like the way you looked at the picture. That was a good thing to do. I like the way you paused and you didn't panic. And then you had to think about what would make sense there. So pointing out all those things is a really good thing to do.
And one last little bit of information for you. On the top of the bookshelf there's 3 different cards. Two of them are the ones that Jess already showed you, and Beck talked about the strategies. So that's like a little take-home bookmark for you that you can take home and put somewhere to remember. There's also a little card that talks about a strategy and then the prompt that you could say to encourage them. They are quite basic ones because we didn't want to overload and give too much, but like you just look at it, think what will work and choose. And this one, which is the 3rd one, if you're into using the iPad with your children, there are just a few lists of apps on here. So there's this first one, which is Go, it's Sight Word Ninja, and then a letter writer, which is just practicing writing the letters. That one's really good for kindy when they're often in kindy they have all the ideas to start writing, but they just can't form the letters yet, or it takes them a long time to think about how to do that. So that's a good one to help with that. There's spelling, 1, 2, 3, goes all through when you spell different words. Spelling City, and also there's a lot of really great online books these days, which is a different way to get your child reading or listening to stories and just being exposed to that kind of language. One of the online sites that I love is Storyline Online, and it's actually created by the Screen Actors Guild Award, so it's different actors and actresses reading the stories, and they do it in quite an entertaining way. You can't always read the words, but they can still practice retelling it or answering questions and discussing what happens.
It's really good for their expression, intonation, because they're listening to that expressive language. I know I've used it with my year 3s, and I've been using it with my year 2s this year as well, and they love it.
Yeah.
Is it Australia? It's in America. They're all just famous actresses and actors, Sometimes they might recognise a person, like, oh, I know that person. Yeah, so they love it.
So they're just on the top here, so if you would like a copy, make sure you grab one before you head out. And is it back to you, Lise, or we just have any questions?
Yeah, well look, that's a lot of information, but we did want to open it up in case you had some questions that we didn't cover or that we didn't cover clearly. Is there anyone that's got a question that they, or a comment?
Just for the kindies, when do the home readers start?
Next month.
It's next week.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
on Monday.
Yeah, week 5.
Do you have any practical suggestions about how you transition from reading to your child to them reading, so how you get the children to be noticing the words like on the kindergarten? So how do you transition from the being read to?
We'll be doing a lot of that, and what it really starts is that letter recognition, the sound that matches the letter. So do they know the letter to start with? Do we know that it's called an M? And then do we know that it's a sound? And then the books that we are sending home are almost entirely picture prompted. So really making sure they can turn the page themselves as well. So most kids know books go from this way to this way, but you'll still get some kids going from this way to this way. Make sure that they're pointing to the words, even if you're reading it first of all, but that they know that each word matches a little set of letters, you know. But it's really the sounding out. And you might only be sounding out the la 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 at the beginning, and you might read the sentence. But just getting as much contribution as you can, and then really using those picture prompts as well. Yeah, and remember those pauses. Wait for them to answer, and
Because Jessie had suggested find a word and get them to find it as reading. And
Yeah,
that's
you
been a really
can.
good one. But I'm like, when do you change from one word in a whole story to that they're
Well, as the
picking up?
complexity of the text increases,
Yeah.
that you'll have words that will be repeated and they'll use that repetition. So that'll support you,
Yeah.
and you can draw attention to that and then build on that,
Yeah.
you know, at the pace that is appropriate for
and learning those beginning sight words. So you might just say, this week we're going to focus on the, and in. And that might be your 3. And then you might quiz them a few days later, and just those very, very basic sight words. So when they come at the pet shop, they go, oh, I know that one, you know. And then use the picture prompts for the other ones as well. So.
One more thing I'm a fan of is echo reading. So you read and they read just after you do. So they are pretty much copying you, but you're following along, you're reading the words together. So like if it was at the pet shop, they're reading just after you, and it just gives them a little bit extra confidence, but they're still reading along at the same time and matching what they're saying with a word. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Learning the sound, another letter, like we all kind of know that, but so do you just go by how we know those sounds, or are there particular strategies, like are there some that are trickier than others? Do you start with easy ones?
We actually did an action research project last year using letters and sounds, and we are using that at least for this beginning part of the year now.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a mixture of the program letters and sounds and things that we think work really well as well, but it goes through, it's called SATPIN. So it's SATPIN, and we could either provide it with you, or you can really just Google letters and sounds or SATPIN, and it will give you them all really easily. Like you'll find it SATPIN.
It
So-
goes in stages, the phonics, and the books are based around the phonics. So the first stage is SATPIN, and then it'll move into your and your T's or your double L's and things like that. So you can look it up online.
Yeah.
I think there's 6 stages, but yeah, SATPIN's the very first sort of common sounds that they'll see. So the books are very phonemic, so it will move you there for the progression as well.
And remembering, and we use a lot of motion as well. Like, so when we're in class and we're teaching S, if we ask the children what's our S move, they'll go right. And our tennis, so we're just taught the tennis.
Coming home doing that.
The tennis one the other day was so we make a physical as well connection as well, just to try and cover different learning styles, because different children will learn differently.
And it really is amazing how just those actions for some children will help them to know it. Last year I would be doing the action and I'd go, I know that one, that's S. And I'm like, yep, yes it is. Okay.
And then do you do it in your everyday life?
I haven't gotten to that stage yet, maybe after this year.
I do notice my T's after a tea lesson. I'll be in the staff room going you know, everything I say.
I've got a really burning question here that I am compelled to ask, which is, do you know if the apps are available on Android?
I don't know, but I assume so. Like I
Look
haven't
into it.
come across any that are.
Yes, yeah.
Because my brother might have enough money to get an account.
And often, like, there's often a website version of the apps as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
get
good.
them on the computer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Look, thanks so much for coming. It's such an important foundation to get that right and to have that love of reading and establish that. I wanted to say thank you to all the teachers. Originally this was just a kindergarten information session, and then just a little while out we thought, oh, we'll include the 1-2s, and all the teachers were just like, yep, we're in straight away. So I really appreciate that. Very well done, and thanks for coming. If you've got any further questions, the door's always open. Remember, your class teacher's your first point of call, but there's lots of other experts in the school. If I've got a child and we've got questions around their reading, I'll often go to Sandy and say, can you have a look here? Tell me what strategies are being employed. What's our next step? What do we need to work on? So the level of expertise in the school, even though Sandy works under that Yield umbrella, her level of expertise in this area is enormous. So, you know, feel free to all it is, Sandy. You know, we've got such a wonderful wealth of knowledge on the staff, and the door's always open, and it is a very genuine partnership, and I really thank you for coming tonight.